The wind howled through the abandoned neighborhood as Daniel carefully stepped over broken glass and dead leaves. The old Miller house stood before him, its wooden frame rotting, its windows shattered like hollow, empty eyes staring at him. "Just a quick look," he muttered to himself, tightening his grip on the flashlight. Everyone in town said the house was cursed. Some claimed they had seen shadows move inside. Others swore they heard whispers from its walls. But Daniel didn't believe in ghost stories. He pushed the door open, and it groaned like something waking from a long slumber. The air inside was thick with the scent of decay and dust. His footsteps echoed in the silence as he moved through the house, his flashlight flickering against the peeling wallpaper. Then, something caught his eye, a wooden box resting on a shelf in the corner of the room. It looked ancient, covered in intricate carvings of screaming faces, their mouths twisted in agony. A sudden chill ran down his spine. Slowly, he reached out and unlatched the box. Inside lay a mask, jet black, smooth as polished bone, with empty eye sockets that seemed to pierce straight into his soul. As soon as he touched it, a whisper slithered through the air. "Take me home." Daniel's breath hitched. The room suddenly felt smaller, the darkness pressing in around him. His instincts screamed at him to put the mask down and run, but he didn't. He shoved the mask into his backpack, turned, and hurried out of the house. As he walked away, he had the strangest feeling, like something had followed him. Something unseen, something waiting. Chapter 1. The Discovery. The moment Daniel stepped into his bedroom, he felt it. The air was heavier, the silence deeper. He dropped his backpack on the bed and pulled out the mask. In the dim light of his desk lamp, the mask looked even more unsettling. The empty sockets seemed darker than before, as if they were absorbing the light around them. He hesitated for a moment, then placed it on his desk and turned away. But the feeling of being watched didn't go away. That night, he barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he thought he heard something, a whisper, a breath, something moving in the shadows. And in the darkest hours of the night, as he lay half asleep, he heard it clearly. Daniel. His eyes snapped open. The room was dark, but his heart pounded. Then, a soft creak. His flashlight was still on the nightstand. With trembling fingers, he grabbed it and aimed it at his desk. The mask was gone. His stomach twisted. He scanned the room, his pulse hammering against his ribs. Then slowly, his gaze drifted to the floor. The mask was lying there, just inches away from his bed. How did it get there? His breath came in ragged gasps. He grabbed the mask, shoved it back onto the desk, and turned his back to it. But for the rest of the night, he never closed his eyes again. Chapter 2. The Whispers Begin Over. The next few days, Daniel's world started to change. The whispers became more frequent, creeping into his thoughts at random moments. "Where me?" He would hear it in the shower, while doing homework, in the middle of class. He tried to ignore it, but the more he resisted, the stronger it became. Then, one night he lost control. His body moved on its own. His hands reached for the mask. Before he even realized what he was doing, he had lifted it to his face. The moment it touched his skin, a wave of cold shot through him. His vision blurred. The world around him twisted. And then, darkness. Chapter 3. The First Possession. When Daniel woke up, he wasn't in his room. He was standing outside, barefoot, in the middle of the street. His breath came in ragged gasps as he looked around. The sky was dark, the streetlights flickering. His hands were freezing, his feet covered in dirt. And he had no idea how he got there. The mask was gone. Panic surged through him. He ran home, bolted the door shut, and checked his reflection in the mirror. His face was pale, his eyes hollow. Then, something moved behind him, a shadow. He spun around, heart hammering. But the room was empty, except for the mask. It was back on. His desk, watching, waiting. Chapter 4. The Hunger of the Mask. Daniel tried everything to get rid of the mask. He threw it in the trash. It came back. He buried it in the woods. The next morning, it was on his desk. It wanted something. It wanted him. That night, he felt himself slipping away again. His vision blurred, his limbs turned numb. And then, he woke up in an alley, standing over a man, an unconscious man, blood on his hands. Daniel stumbled back, his chest heaving. He looked down. His fingers were bruised, his nails chipped. He had no memory of what happened. But he knew. The mask had taken control, and it wasn't going to stop. Chapter 5. The mask takes control. Daniel had to find a way to end it. He found an old historian, Mr. Holloway, who studied cursed objects. When the man saw the mask, his face turned white. "You must destroy it before it consumes you completely," Holloway warned. Daniel knew he had to act fast, but the mask wasn't going to let him go so easily. Chapter 6. The truth revealed. That night, Daniel woke up to something pressing against his face. The mask. It had attached itself to his skin. His body convulsed. His breath caught in his throat. Shadows wrapped around him, pulling him into a world of endless darkness. He saw them, the spirits, the souls trapped inside. And then he saw him, a creature of shadows, wearing the mask like a second skin. "You are mine now." Chapter 7. The final battle summoning every ounce of willpower, Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a lighter. He set the mask on fire. The shadows screamed. The spirits howled. The darkness twisted and collapsed in on itself. Then, silence. Daniel fell to the ground, gasping. The mask was gone. He was free, or so he thought. Days later, as he walked past an antique shop, his heart stopped. In the display window, sitting behind the glass, was a mask, black as night.